Hello, good morning. Welcome to this tutorial. In today's tutorial, you're going to learn about SQL Server system database. In SQL Server, we have about 5 system databases. Out of the 5 system databases, 4 of which are databases that you can really see inside SQL Server Management Studio. The 5th system database, which is the resource database, can not be seen inside the SQL Server Management Studio. However, you can see that inside your local machine in your root bin directory. The different system databases are the master, model, TemDB, MSDB, and resource database. Okay, let us do a quick look into SQL Server Management Studio and see if we can identify the master databases, and then we move forward to see where we can find the system resource database. Okay, right. Let me open up my SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, right now inside SQL Server Management Studio, you can see here. You can, if you go to the databases, click on databases, you see system databases. Click on system databases, you can see master, model, MSDB, TemDB. All right, but now how do we see their IDs? Right here, we say master database. Right here, master database has ID number 1, model has ID number 3, TemDB has ID number 2, MSDB has ID number 4, and resource DB has ID database ID number 32767. But how do we see that? So in order to see that, you just have to type S_help DB, run this store procedure, and you'll be able to see, we can find the different databases, the different IDs of our system database that we have. Okay, so here is DB. Correct this real quick. DB, ID, database ID, database ID. Okay, so look here real quick. You see the master database, DB ID is 1. Model database, DB ID is 3. MSDB database, DB ID is 4. And TemDB database, DB ID is 2. Right here. And the rest inside here are, you have the user databases, but we cannot see resource database inside SQL Server Management Studio, as I said earlier. Okay, if you want to see, in order to see the MSQL resource database, you go to your local machine and you go to the root bin directory. In order to go to your root bin directory, mine is located inside my drive C. I'm going to go to this PC, look for my drive C, click there, go to program files. Inside program files, I have MSQL Server. And in MSQL Server, I'll look for my MSQL Server, MSQL 11.MSQL Server. And this is going to take me to the root directory. And in the root directory, inside the root directory, I have the bin folder. And in the bin folder, I will just look for resource MSQL. This is my resource database. Okay. Now, this is how you can see your resource database found in your root bin directory. All right. So let's understand the different system databases. In this tutorial, we are going to concentrate on master database. And in subsequent releases, we are going to look at model, TemDB, MSDB, and resource databases. Okay. Now, the master database. The master database is the database that records all system level information. Master database records all level system information for SQL Server system. It contains the metadata, that is data about data of an instance, such as logon, account, logon, account, endpoints, and system configuration and system configuration settings. Okay. System configuration settings. The master database also records existence of all other databases. So it has the metadata about every other database, like the user databases in SQL Server. Okay, and also it has the location of these databases. It has the location of their files, the files of these databases, and the initialization information for SQL Server. Thus, SQL Server cannot start if the master database is corrupted, because it contains a lot of information that has to do with every information or every resource inside the SQL Server. In case SQL Server, the master database is corrupt or unavailable, you won't be able to start up SQL Server. Okay. Now let's try to understand some properties of master database. Whenever you create a database, two important files are being created. You have the master data file and the log file, or you can call them mdf.mdf and the .ldf file. Let us let's quickly jump into SQL Server and see if we can see those files. Click here and the properties, and then I'll go to files. See, this is what I'm talking about right here. You have the logical name of the file, that is the master and the mass log. Okay, and the file types is, for master data file is the raw data, and the file type for mass log is log. So when we talk about log here, we are talking about transactions based. Okay, here it's transactions that are being captured inside the log file, and this one is the data files, data that has not been changed yet. Okay, and you can see the file group is the primary, and for the log it's not applicable. Okay, and also we talked about the master database containing the initial configuration of data, or the other initial configuration settings of your database. Now, but the initial size of the master data file is 4 megabytes. The initial size is 4 megabytes, and the initial size of the log file or mass log is 1 megabyte by default. Okay, and in SQL Server, the master data file or the master data file auto grows in size, and it can grow to up to a maximum of 10%. Okay, it grows by 10%, sorry, and it grows with an unlimited maximum size. Okay, and the mass log also grows by 10% and is unlimited. Now, the mass log has it grows to a maximum of 2 terabytes. Meanwhile, the file group, like we said, is unlimited, so it grows by 10%, auto grows by 10%, until the disk is full. So if the disk is not full, it won't stop growing. So that is why you have to, be watchful when you are setting up certain parameters in the database, especially taking backups local machine. All right, let us now, having understood this, the physical properties of the master database, let's move forward with the master. Let's move forward with getting some understanding on some restrictions that are placed in the master database. Certain things you cannot do while working inside a master database. So while working in your master database, you must understand that the master database is owned by the SA. SA is sysadmin. All that right here. Let me show you one more time. See who owns the master database. Go here. We look at MSDB, database size, and owner. See, the owner is SA. SA means system administrator. Okay. And you can also see model database is owned by system administrator. MSDB is owned by system administrator. TempDB is owned by system administrator. So here we are saying that because it is the master database is owned by the system administrator, you cannot change the owner of this master database to another owner. So you can't give it to a regular user. Okay. The files and file groups in master database cannot be added to another master database. Cannot be added to the files and file groups cannot be added to a master database. So what you're saying is you can't add files and file groups to master database. You cannot extend it. You can add it rather. You cannot add. Once it's there, you can add them. Only a full database backup can be taken on the master database. That means you cannot take transaction log backup. You can't take sequential logs. You cannot take copy only logs backup. Sorry. Let's see typically an example. Let's try to take a transaction log backup on master database and see if it's going to work. Go to that backup. And then we want to take a transaction log. See here, it doesn't give you the option to use anything else but full. So you only take full backup in master at the level of the master database. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this. Cancel this. The full text catalog or index cannot be created on a master database. You cannot create full text catalog or an index on a master database. The database and the primary file groups cannot be renamed. That means you cannot rename master database. So if you try to rename, you can't, there's no option to rename the master database. Okay, so you don't have an option. Look at the name, master, you can't rename it. If you give something else like master 2, see, I'm trying to type, it doesn't go, it doesn't give you the option. Grayed out. Okay, it's grayed out, you cannot rename master database. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. The master database cannot participate in the database mirroring. We'll see this when we'll be doing high availability. Okay. Now, mirroring is a high availability technological tool that is used to ensure that servers are always up and running. So, SQL Server has restricted the use of a master database to ensure high availability and to ensure high availability. Master database, the change data capture can't be enabled for master database. So you cannot enable change data capture. You cannot drop the master database. Okay, you can drop. Yeah, of course, you did not create it. So how do you want to drop it? The triggers cannot be created on system tables. You cannot place triggers on system tables in master database. Guest users cannot be dropped from the database. The primary file group, primary data files, and log files cannot be removed from the master database. The next slide is we are going to look into the recommendations in case you are master when you are working on SQL Server. Sorry, when you're working in the master database on the master database in SQL Server. These are some of the recommendations that Microsoft has provided. You have to avoid setting the trustworthy option to on. Don't turn it on. Avoid setting that trustworthy option. You also have to avoid creating user objects. So this means that in case you create the user object master, then you must back up the master database more frequently. But it is not a good practice to create a user object inside the master database. Okay. The master database must be backed up as soon as the following operations are performed. So if you create or modify or drop any database inside the master, if you create, modify, or drop the master database, okay, then you must if you create, modify, or drop any object inside the master database, then you must take a full backup. If you create, modify, or drop any object inside master database, then you must take backup, that is full backup frequently. In case you change, there's the change of server or database configuration values, you must also back up the master database as soon as you, sorry about this, this is database. In case you modify or add logon accounts, it's always good to full backup of your master database. In case you create, modify, or drop any database inside your SQL Server, it's good to take full database as full backup of your master database. Always have the current backup of the master database available in case of any disaster recovery. In case of disaster, you will need a master database backup to cover your database. And the last thing we are going to look at is how you can bring back or return your master database from the unusable state to the usable state. So in a situation where your master database is in the unusable state, that means it cannot be used, in order for you to bring it back to the usable state, you have to perform some restore. So you use the backup that you have, current backup, and perform a restore. Do a restore, restore the master from it. You do the restore, okay? So if you have a current backup, as it is recommended, you have to restore that. And this is in a situation where you have to do you have to do the restore. It's in a situation where the master database is not severely damaged. Okay, it's not severely damaged, then you just restore the database. But in a case where you have a severely damaged database, master database, then the only option is going to be for you to rebuild your master database, do a complete review of the master database. In our subsequent videos, I'm going to walk you through on how to rebuild your master database completely from scratch. So this situation is usually being done in case of severe damage, as I said. And this brings us to the end of this presentation. Thank you for watching, and look forward to be providing answers to any questions or worries that you have. See you in our next video.